Howdy, and welcome to LeeReads, where I talk about the books I've been reading and enjoying lately. I decided to go ahead and do the R Fantasy Bingo card again for this year. The card runs from April 1st all the way through the end of March. There are 25 spots. Oh, hi, kitty cat. The novels that qualify have to be science fiction, fantasy, or horror, speculative fiction. A rule that I ignored last year was you're only supposed to use each author one time. Oops. And all the books are supposed to be new to you, but you are allowed one reread. You're also allowed to sub one tile from last year's card, but I'm not going to do that. Briefly, I just want to go through what the prompts are and what I selected for each prompt, and we will see how well I stick to it. I tried to be smart about it. I already have my video of 24 books I want to read for 2024, which I've made good progress on so far. And where books applied, I used those books because I'm excited to read them. Some prompts I had no idea, and there are suggestion threads on the cards page, which I'll link below. Without further ado, the first tile, row 1, column 1, is first book in a series. I selected The Wolf by Leo Carew, which I've heard several people talk very highly about. What intrigues me about this story is the broad idea of it is, what if Neanderthals were still around and they were at war with Homo sapiens? And I think there might be different types of magic, maybe, but there's definitely politics. I was really intrigued by the idea of the Neanderthal-like species being in conflict with humanity and how that would have fallen out. Next is alliterative title. The title of the book has to start with several of the same letters, and I picked Relics of Ruin, sequel to Empire of Exiles by Aaron Evans. I really liked that one. I think it came out early last year. I did a reading vlog for it, and Relics of Ruin just came out, or it's coming out very soon. Next is Under the Surface, so books set underwater. I chose A Letter from the Luminous Deep. This one is epistolary, or told in letter format. It's kind of a mystery. So apparently there are these two scientists that kind of bonded, maybe fell in love or something. One is living in this habitat under the sea, and then something happens to them. They disappear. So the siblings or family members of each of them wind up meeting as they're both trying to figure out what happened to their family member. So it could be a melancholy story. The cover is very pretty and the idea is intriguing. It's been comped to Emily Wild's Encyclopedia of Fairies, I think because of the letter entry format. Hopefully I enjoy it. For criminals, I selected Mask of Mirrors. This is one that I've been wanting to read for a while, and the main character is a con artist in this Venetian-inspired city who's trying to insinuate herself with this noble house. They have lost their wealth, and they're trying to con her in return, and there's more larger politics, but I don't know more details. I've heard wonderful things of this entire series, which is now complete. And I already own it, so I'm going to read it. The final one for that row is Dreams. This one, I wasn't quite sure what I was going to pick. Layer of Dreams in the Diviner series, which I just finished, would have been wonderful. Helm of Midnight actually fits. That's another on my anticipated 24 books for 24 list. It's about the society where these masks are made for famous, very talented people, like crafts people, poets, things like that. There was a mask made after this serial killer or this murder upon that person's death, and this mask goes missing, and then similar murders starting. Seems kind of dark, but I've heard very good things. Starting the next row, Entitled Animals is the prompt, so it's supposed to have some sort of animal in the title, and I chose To Shape a Dragon's Breath. It's about a first indigenous dragon rider, I believe, and I like the idea of dragon rider, and the people who recommended it on the Reddit thread spoke very highly of it. Bards. You know what would be perfect for this? A River Enchanted. But I've already read it, so I can't use it. Actually, someone suggested Curse of the Mist Race by Jenny Wirtz, which is another one that I own and have been meaning to get to for a while. I didn't know it had bards in it, but they said it would work for this tile, so that's what I'm putting. Prologues and epilogues. Should be pretty easy to fill this in fantasy at least, and I selected Hyperion. There's a theme because I own it and I need to read it. Hyperion is sort of inspired by Canterbury Tales, I believe, and it's 7 travelers on the spaceship going to somewhere called Hyperion, I believe, and they're each telling their story. It's a classic sci-fi. I really need to get to it. Self-pub or indie published. I'm selecting Blood and Steel. I saw it highly recommended in our fantasy romance. So many people were like, yes, this book is underrated, and I like romantasy, so I selected that one, and it's a self-published author, I believe. The next tile is actually romantasy, which really shouldn't be hard for me to fill. For this tile, I selected A Marvelous Light, which is another book that I own, which I believe is a gay romance. There's always a chance I may swap it out with another romantasy as the mood strikes. Middle row, Dark Academia, Blood over Bright Haven. I still haven't read Sword of Kaigen. I think because everyone raved about it so much when that book came out that I got a little over it, you know, that feeling. But I really do like the Dark Academia setting. The premise of this one, this woman has been trying to get into this prestigious magical school, but women aren't supposed to study there. Somehow she gets let in, but they partner her up with some mentor that's like a janitor or something. So they really don't want her to succeed, but this person that they mentor her with has, I think, secrets of their own. And again, highly, highly recommended by everyone who's read it, like people's favorite book of last year, etc. So I got it, and as soon as I saw Dark Academia, I was like, this is the chance. Multi-point of view story. Again, not that hard to find in science fiction and fantasy. I decided to select City of Lost Chances by Adrian Tchaikovsky because I usually like whatever I pick up by him. I think it's a low magic fantasy, and I've heard the way he tells the story, first like using the city in the first book and then using, I think, a mercenary or soldier camp in the second book to tell the story. That was very intriguing to me, even though I don't really know what the story is about. I usually like the way he goes about telling his stories, and it's worth a try. Published in 2024, that's easy. I selected The Familiar. Actually, I got the notification that it arrived today. I think it came out this past Tuesday, and I'm excited to go get that one and crack that one open. It's by Leigh Bardugo, who I haven't read tons from, but this one is set in Spain, I think around the Spanish Inquisition or inspired by that. This is a person who is a servant and kind of uses her magic to help her get by in the task that she has to do in a daily life until her mistress realizes that she has this magic, which might be illegal, and starts trying to exploit that, and the larger story unfolds. I'm really hoping that I jive with this one. Character with a disability. This is a perfect opportunity to read more Vorkosigan Saga because Miles Vorkosigan, due to the circumstances of surrounding his birth, his body is very fragile. A Warrior's Apprentice, I believe, is the first book in the Miles Omnibus, so I intend to finish that one and read the next one for this tile. I think I'm less than halfway through, so it should still count for this tile, but I've been meaning to continue on with the Vorkosigan Saga. I really, really liked Shards of Honor and Barrier. I'm gonna read them in suggested chronological order. Published in the 90s, I'm gonna try my very first Mercedes Lackey. This one is By the Sword. So I haven't read any other in the Valdemar series, but I think this one is standalone. Hopefully it is. Well, y'all let me know if there's some other one I need to read first. This was published in copyright 1991. I saw this in Half Price Books and I was intrigued by the cover. There's always so much Mercedes Lackey on the shelf. I've never read any of it. The first one on the 4th row is Orcs, Trolls, and Goblins, Oh My. So the main character is one of those types of creatures, and I am selecting the Goblin Emperor. Story about this half-goblin, I believe, who is really far down the line of succession for this imperial throne and abruptly becomes emperor and knows nothing and is navigating the day-to-day life of becoming emperor, but everyone says it's very cozy. So I'm not quite sure how that's going to work out, but it's one of my best friend's favorite books, and so on that recommendation, I'm putting that on my card. For space opera, and when I was sitting there trying to think of books that would apply to space opera, I abruptly forgot about every science fiction I ever wanted to read. I'm going to continue with the Expeditionary Force series and listen to book 5 on audiobook. The stipulation for this one is it has to take place primarily in space or on a spaceship, or deal with typical science fiction themes of social or scientific issues. I'm looking forward to getting back with Joe Bishop and his merry band of pirates. For author of color, I selected The Saint of Bright Doors. I believe that this one is nominated for, it's on the shortlist for either the Hugos or the Nebula, one of those awards for this year. So thus highly recommended on the lists. I really like the cover. I don't know much about it, but I do try to read the books on those lists that sound interesting to me, and this is a great excuse to pick this one up. The next tile is Survival. I selected Lone Woman, which I think is a horror. It's about this black woman who is in like the Western United States setting, running from something. Her parents were murdered, and now she's trying to move this trunk full of, we don't know what's in the trunk. Horror, Western, have heard it's good. It's on the list. Judge a book by its cover. This one is hard because most of the books on my shelf I've read, and I think the best place to judge a book by its cover would be browsing a bookshop. So I was thinking about going and seeing what piqued my interest, but in the meantime, I put The King of Elfland's Daughter on my card. I actually selected this for last year's bingo and didn't end up reading it, but one of the reasons I selected it was because I really liked the cover. It's kind of this classic fantasy, kind of romantic feel to me. And even though I don't know too much about what the story is about, picking it based on that cover. There's always a chance, though, that I end up swapping this with something else that has an even more attractive cover to me. We'll see. And the last row, first title. Set in a small town, I selected Practical Magic. I used to love this movie when I was a kid. I haven't watched it in forever. I think it'd be really fun to read this one. I don't think it's going to be too long. And I know my library has it. The next one is 5 short stories, which I feel like I might be grabbing from last year's card on accident. I put Exhalation by Ted Chiang. He writes speculative fiction short stories. Hopefully that's the right tile and I don't have to swap it out. Next is Eldritch Creatures. I put the novella Ring Shout, because these members of the Ku Klux Klan are actually inhabited by monsters called the Ku Kluxes, which sounds pretty eldritch to me. And the main character is a black person who slays them. That is what I know about the novella and all I need to know because it's short. For reference materials, this has to have list of dramatis personae, maps, appendices, things like that. The Lord of the Rings is a really good choice for that if you've not read it. I was actually thinking about putting the Silmarillion, but I'm not sure how many appendices are with the Silmarillion. I actually decided to use Kushiel's Dart, which was on my list of 24 books for 2024. This is going to be my one reread because I want to. It's been over 10 years, maybe 12 years since I've read it, and I'd like to revisit it. Last is book club or read-along book. There is a book club that is reading Michelle West. I'm going to go with Hunter's Death, which is the second book in this duology, even though it's actually like 2/3 of the duology. Our Fantasy has a huge list of active book clubs and read-alongs that you can select from. So I think that's it. I think that's the main rules, and we will see how I get along. I'll be checking in with my progress as I read these. I'll be slowly filling in the bingo card so that I don't get to like next March and then realize that I hadn't actually done a good job with it. I want to do a better job this year. I'm not worried about hard mode. I would just like to stick to this card. That is my goal, barring the few ones that I said that I might switch out. So, are you going to participate and play along? I will link the information about the bingo card in the description below so you can go read all about it on Our Fantasy. Let me know what you would pick for some of these prompts. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoy it. And as always, don't forget to support your local library. Thanks.